Imagine taking a dream trip overseas, only to return home in a coma without ever knowing what happened to you. This is the haunting reality of Otto Warmbier, an American student who embarked on a trip to North Korea. What began as an adventurous getaway quickly spiraled into a nightmare from which Otto never woke up. How did a simple vacation lead to such a devastating end? And what really happened during his time in one of the world's most dangerous regimes? In this video, we uncover the tragic mystery behind Otto Warmbier's final days. Otto Warmbier was a bright, hard-working student at the University of Virginia. And by all accounts, he was the kind of person who had everything going for him. Academically gifted, athletic, and popular among his peers. It was during his junior year that Otto decided to take a break from his studies. After months of grueling coursework, he sought something different. But instead of a typical vacation spot, Otto made a surprising choice: North Korea. Known for its extreme secrecy and rigid governmental control, it was not the usual destination for young travelers. Yet Otto was curious. He wanted to see what life was like behind the country's Iron Curtain. So, in December of 2015, Otto joined a group of international travelers on a guided tour to one of the most isolated places on Earth. Once inside North Korea, Otto and the rest of the group were introduced to a world that felt like a strange, staged performance. The capital city of Pyongyang was a place of grand monuments and meticulously planned events. Everywhere they went, they were greeted by towering statues, colourful parades, and heavily curated propaganda exhibits. It felt almost surreal, as if they were walking through a city designed to impress, not to reveal its true self. Otto was intrigued by the experience. In one instance, he even broke away from the group for a moment to engage in a playful snowball fight with local children, only to be quickly scolded by their guides. But despite these interactions, there was a growing sense of unease. The tour group couldn't help but wonder, was the joy they witnessed real, or was it simply an act put on for their benefit? Then came New Year's Eve, the final night of Otto's tour. While the group celebrated, Otto decided to retire early to his hotel room. It was a quiet end to a long trip, and the next day, the group prepared to leave North Korea and head home. But something went terribly wrong. At the airport, just as the group was getting ready to board their flight, Otto was pulled aside by North Korean security. Without warning, he was escorted away by uniformed soldiers. His fellow travelers were left stunned and confused. Otto had simply disappeared, taken behind unmarked doors. This was the last time any of them saw him. After Otto's arrest, there was nothing but silence. His family and friends back in the US were desperate for answers. But North Korean authorities refused to acknowledge what had happened to him. Weeks went by with no information. Then, suddenly, North Korea released a video that would send shockwaves around the world. In the footage, Otto appeared drastically different. His once bright and lively demeanor was replaced by a somber, almost lifeless expression. In front of a courtroom, he delivered what seemed to be a forced confession, admitting his crimes against the regime. According to North Korean officials, Otto had been accused of attempting to steal a political propaganda banner from the restricted staff-only area of his hotel. This wasn't just any ordinary banner. It bore a political slogan that praised the North Korean regime and its leaders, something that holds immense symbolic importance in the country. In North Korea, these images, slogans, and symbols are treated with a reverence that borders on sacred. Propaganda is a tool used by the government to solidify their control and maintain loyalty from the population. To the regime, the act of tampering with these items is seen not just as vandalism, but as an attack on the country's ideology and leadership. North Korea's claim was that Otto planned to smuggle the banner back to the US, potentially to sell it or use it as a trophy of defiance. While the truth behind these allegations remains unclear, North Korean authorities framed it as an act of espionage and disrespect. one they would not tolerate. By making an example out of Otto, they sent a stark message to other foreign tourists. Any violation of their rules, no matter how small it might seem, would be met with severe consequences. In a country where maintaining control is paramount, the theft of such a symbol was seen as a direct challenge to the regime's authority. After the trial, Otto vanished from the public eye. Sentenced to 15 years of hard labor, he was sent to one of North Korea's notorious labor camps, where foreign detainees are often subjected to harsh conditions. For over a year, there were no updates on Otto's condition, no word on what he was going through or where exactly he was being held. His family was completely cut off from any communication with him during this time. Despite repeated efforts, Otto's parents were unable to speak with their son or receive any reliable information about his well-being. North Korean officials refused to provide regular updates, leaving the Warmbier family in agonizing uncertainty. For over a year, they had no idea if Otto was alive or dead. And it wasn't until much later that they learned the devastating truth about his condition. Then, in June of 2017, after serving approximately 17 months of his sentence, the world learned that Otto was being released. North Korea claimed it was for humanitarian reasons, but the truth was much darker. When Otto returned to the US, he wasn't walking off the plane. Instead, he was carried on a stretcher, unresponsive. Otto Warmbier had fallen into a coma, and his family was left in shock. The joyful reunion they had hoped for never came. Instead, they were faced with the devastating reality that Otto was no longer the same person. After Otto's return to the US, doctors were puzzled by what they found. There were no broken bones, no visible signs of physical trauma, no indications of the kind of violent torture that many had assumed. However, Otto had suffered extensive and widespread brain damage. Medical examinations revealed that he was in a state of unresponsive wakefulness, meaning he could breathe on his own and his heart was functioning, but there was no awareness or response to his surroundings. This type of brain damage is typically caused by oxygen deprivation to the brain, leading to extensive cell death. The exact cause of this damage remains unclear. North Korean officials claim that Otto had contracted botulism, a rare bacterial illness, and fell into a coma after being given a sleeping pill. However, US doctors found no evidence to support this explanation. There were no traces of botulism in his system. Another possibility is that Otto may have suffered a heart attack or some other medical emergency that restricted blood flow to his brain. But again, there was no definitive evidence. What is particularly unclear is when exactly this brain damage occurred. Based on his condition upon arrival, it's believed that Otto was already in a vegetative state when he boarded the plane to return home. North Korean officials gave no details about when or how he had fallen into this state, and there were no signs that he had become sick on the plane itself. This has led to speculation that Otto had been in this condition for a considerable amount of time before his release, possibly for much of his imprisonment. While the lack of physical injuries made it difficult to directly link his condition to violence or mistreatment, the mystery surrounding his health during his time in captivity has left many questions unanswered. The absence of clear evidence has only fueled more speculation about what really happened to Otto during his 17 months in North Korean custody. As the investigations continued, the case became more political. The US officials, including President Trump, publicly condemned North Korea, accusing them of inhumane treatment. But behind the scenes, doctors and medical experts struggled to pinpoint exactly what had caused Otto's decline. Despite their best efforts, Otto never regained consciousness. On June 19, 2017, he passed away, leaving his family heartbroken and the world searching for answers. His death sparked international outrage, but it also left behind a trail of questions that may never be answered. What really happened to Otto Warmbier during his time in North Korea? Was he the victim of a brutal regime, or was his decline the result of something more complex? The true story remains locked away with the North Korean government. and we may never know the full truth. Otto Warmbier's story is more than just a tale of tragedy. It's a powerful reminder of the risks that can come with seeking adventure in places where secrecy and oppression reign. His journey, once filled with hope and curiosity, ended in heartbreak, leaving behind questions about human rights, government secrecy, and the treatment of foreign detainees. While the full truth of what happened to Otto may remain hidden, his story serves as a cautionary lesson about the dangers of political regimes that place no value on human life. Remember, every crime has a story, and every story has a lesson.